Yeah, so stop.
I'm just saying.
3, 2, 1, action.
They were designed to carry raw materials from the hinterland into the ports to be shipped to Britain. And the fact is that the Indian or Jamaican or other colonial public, their needs were incidental. Transportation, there was no attempt made to match supply to demand for mass transport, none whatsoever. Instead, in fact, the Indian railways were built with massive incentives offered by Britain to British investors, guaranteed out of Indian taxes paid by Indians, with the result that you actually had 1 mile of Indian railway costing twice what it cost to build the same mile in Canada or Australia, because there was so much money being paid in extravagant returns. Britain made all the profits, controlled the technology, supplied all the equipment, and absolutely all these benefits came as private enterprise, British private enterprise, at public risk, Indian public risk. That was the railways as an accomplishment. We're hearing about aid. I think it was again Sir Richard Ottaway who mentioned British aid to India. Well, let me just point out that British aid to India is about 0.4% of India's GDP. The government of India actually spends more on fertilizer subsidies, which might be an appropriate metaphor for that argument. If I may point out as well,
this is so sad.
If I may point out as well that that as my fellow speakers from the proposition have pointed out, there have been incidents of racial violence, of loot, of massacres, of bloodshed, of transportation, in India's case even of one of our last Mughal emperor. Yes, maybe today's Britons are not responsible for some of these depredations, but the same speakers are pointed with pride to their foreign aid. You're not responsible for the people starving in Somalia, but you give them aid. Surely the principle of reparations for the wrongs that have been done cannot be denied. It's been pointed out, for example, the dehumanization of Africans in the Caribbean, the massive psychological damage that has been done, the undermining of social traditions, of property rights, of the authority structures of these societies, all in the interests of British colonialism. And the fact remains that many of today's problems in these countries, including the persistence, in some cases the creation of racial and ethnic and religious tensions, were the direct result of the colonial experience. So there is a moral debt that needs to be paid. Someone challenged reparations elsewhere. Well, I'm sorry, Germany doesn't just give reparations to Israel. It also gave reparations to Poland. Perhaps some of the speakers here are too young to remember the dramatic picture of Chancellor Willy Brandt on his knees in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1970. And
How y'all doing?
there are other examples. There is Italy's reparations to Libya. There's Japan's to Korea. Even Britain has paid reparations to the New Zealand Maoris. So it's not as if this is something unprecedented or unheard of that's going to somehow open some sort of nasty Pandora's box. No wonder Professor Lewis reminded us that he's from Texas. There's a wonderful expression in Texas that summarizes the arguments of the opposition: all hat and no cattle. Now,
you know, it's so... It's wow. And you know the funny thing is that why these people will not give these reparations is because they don't even feel that we are worth reparations. Let's be real. Like, because I'm not kidding you, there is this saying, I don't know if it's a secret saying, where an educated person of color would always stand as a threat to the colonials, because they're like, oh no, oh no, oh no. It's like, because it's like seeing through their soul. They're like, oh my god, this person will expose us for what we've done. And they may be clapping, but behind their, at the back of their mind, they're like, oh fuck, you know. So that's why for me, no matter how educated I am, I just sometimes keep my thoughts to myself, because I always, for some reason, I see where people will bring it back to you. Like, oh, you know, this is where you came from, okay? You know, just to make you feel like trash, because it makes them feel better. Then they're like, oh, don't worry, I'm here for you. You see what I'm saying? They always want you to need them, to want them. to, because it makes them feel more empowered. Like you see, we always have this to hold over your head. So watch out for those people. It's this is so eye-opening.
Quickly look through the other notes I was scribbling while they were speaking. There was reference to democracy and rule of law. Let me say with the greatest possible respect, it's a bit rich to oppress, enslave, kill, torture, maim people for 200 years and then celebrate the fact that they're democratic at the end of it.
And this is why I'm an independent.
We were denied democracy, so we had to snatch it, seize it from you. With the greatest reluctance, it was conceded in India's case after 150 years of British rule, and that too with limited franchise. Yes, indeed, ma'am.
The opposition spoke quite highly of Greek and Athenian democracy on which the West should pride itself, and spoke of liberty and equality in that same name. The Athenian democracy was only functioning because of the slave society on which it was built. That's the nature of colonisation.
All right, I don't think that needs contradiction, not from me at any rate. Yes. But if I may just point out, I think the argument made by a couple of the speakers, the first speaker, Mr. Lee in particular, conceded all the evil atrocities of colonialism, but essentially suggested that reparations won't really help. They won't help the right people. They'll be used as a propaganda tool. They'll embolden people like Mr. Mugabe. It's always nice how in the old days, I'm sorry to say that the people of the Caribbean used to frighten their children into behaving and sleeping by saying Sir Francis Drake would come after them. That was a legacy of that. Now it's Mugabe will be there. So this is the new sort of Sir Francis Drake of our times. The fact is very simply, sir, that we are not talking about reparations as a tool to empower anybody. They're a tool for you to atone for the wrongs that have been done. And I am quite prepared to accept the proposition that you can't put a monetary sum on the kinds of horrors people have suffered. Certainly no amount of money can expiate the loss of a loved one, as somebody pointed out there. You're not going to be able to figure out an exact amount, but the principle is what matters. The fact is that to speak blithely of sacrifices on both sides, as an analogy was used here, a burglar comes into your house, ransacks the place, stubs his toe, and you say, well, there was a sacrifice on both sides. That, I'm sorry to say, is not an acceptable argument.
And this is why we fight for equality. Like, you can keep your reparations. We just want to be treated fair.
Specifically that vast sums of money need to be paid. The proposition before this House is the principle of owing reparations, not the fine points of how much is owed, to whom it should be paid. The question is there a debt? Does Britain owe reparations? As far as I'm concerned, the ability to acknowledge a wrong that has been done,
acknowledge it.
Simply say sorry, will go a far
Thank you. Just say sorry
than some
and treat
percentage
people
of GDP
equally. That's
in the form of aid. What is required, it seems to me, is accepting the principle that reparations are owed. Personally, I'd be quite happy if it was £1 a year for the next 200 years after the last 200 years of Britain and India. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Guys, very well spoken, very well thought out, very eloquent, grandiloquent. Like, I don't even know how to describe how axiomatic this situation is, because I am just humbled and gobsmacked by the talent, the skill set, and just the literacy and knowledge that has been dispersed in this discussion, and I'm here for it. Like, at this point, I don't even want any reparations from them, because then they're like, oh, you see, we paid this, so now shut up and zip it. No, honey, just treat me equally, just treat me fairly. Like, if I work hard, if I bust my ass working for you guys, give me what I'm due. Don't give someone else who just sat down there in the office doing nothing my labor. Like, how is it fair? Like, I'm working out there and this person is working down there, but they're making down up because of what? the color of their skin and all. Really? That's why I work for myself, and soon it will get to a point where I don't even want to work with people. I want to work with myself and my team if I ever have those, because I'm not kidding you, I'm one of the most unique stylists in the state I live in and in the salons close to my salons, but I'm the least busiest, because not because of, oh my god, you don't know what you're doing, just and it's sad when you think about it and you look at the person, you're like, those jobs are mediocre. Then when you do a work, they're looking at you like, how did you do that? And I'm like, yeah, you guys are making all the money for doing average jobs. I'm going above and beyond, and I can barely pay my rent for my business. You see, so it's so sad to see the disparity when it comes to the opportunities and the acceptance just based off it's sad and appalling. That's why at this point I just keep my light to myself and my happy soul and spirit to myself. And with the way the tension of politics in the world today, I realized, oh my god, I'm doing this person's hair and this person is supporting everything that is the opposite of me. So why am I interacting with this person? Because I'm trying to pay the rent off, to keep them happy. So at the end of the day, everything I work goes back to that system. And when they say systemic, discrimination and all that, it's real. I experience it every day, and it's sad because it's like you can be the best, nice, sweetest person, and you can still see, and you're like, wow, okay, interesting. Anyway, I love you guys so much, and it's so sad that if I ever have kids, I have to protect them from all this. Lord, we need a better world. We need a better future. That's what I'm gonna say. I love you guys so much. Please take care of yourselves. Shivam, I am so humbled and grateful. You have no idea that you showed me this, because I would never have even known that someone spoke out regarding what's been going on, because I always say peace, 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 but you can say it in a peaceful manner and still get your point across. And that's what was just displayed in this, and I'm happy with it. Woo. I love people from every race, every country, every gender, everything. But would I want to travel to a place where I go there and they're like, oh, this is the royal family and you are a common... Well, honey, I'm royal in my own rights. Like, why would I want to... Imagine accepting something and say, oh yes, I'm a commoner and that is a royal, so I should worship that person's fee? Seriously? Okay, now you guys can have fun with that bullshit. I'm over in my world doing my own thing. Till next time, Shivam, love you all so much. I'm glad I checked it. I have to be honest with you guys. Bye guys.
It's just like a hard pill to swallow for me.
This ain't no allegedly.